Hello and welcome. This is Out Motorsports. My name is Jake and this is the 2021 Kia K5 GT. If you've been following along with our channel for more than a few months, you'll remember that last fall I drove another sapphire blue 2021 Kia K5. Now that K5 was actually the EX trim, which is the highest trim level you can get from Kia with a K5 that comes with the 1.6 liter turbocharged engine. Now I thought that car was pretty good as a highway cruiser, but I thought acceleration was really just adequate. It makes 180 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, and I thought it was fine, but not really gonna set your hair on fire. Finally, Kia has responded. They always said they were going to be coming out with the K5 GT, and the K5 GT is finally here. So, for all of us who are looking for a Kia K5 but really wanted more power than 180 horsepower could provide, now there is something for all of us. So let's talk about what the K5 GT is drivetrain-wise. We'll talk about what else you get with the K5 GT that you don't on any other Kia K5, and then we'll get it out and see how it is to actually drive. And before we get into all of that, please take a second, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to turn on that notification bell so you don't miss anything else that's coming. We've got a lot more fun cars and trucks coming, both new and old, so you don't want to miss out on anything that is coming next. So as far as what makes the 2021 Kia K5 GT different from a drivetrain perspective, just engine and transmission, compared to the other models in the K5 lineup, let's talk about this motor first of all. All of the other Kia K5s come with a 1.6 liter Turbo 4, which, like I said, makes 180 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. This one comes with a 2.5 liter Turbo 4, so just bigger displacement, and it makes a lot more horsepower and torque. This K5 GT makes 290 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. That is just nuts for a family sedan, especially when you consider what everyone was putting out only a few years ago. So Kia offers a higher performance version of this K5, 311 pound-feet of torque. And that is good for a sub 6 second 0 to 60 run and a quarter mile somewhere in the 14-second range. Now putting that power down to the ground is a Kia in-house developed 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. This is a transmission that is shared, as Kia is part of this Kia Hyundai family lineup. The transmission is shared with other Kia and Hyundai products that are performance-oriented and front-wheel drive. So if you've driven a dual-clutch enabled Hyundai Veloster N, or if you've driven this car's sibling, like Tyler just reviewed, the Hyundai Sonata N-Line, they also have this 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. And it's notable to point out it is a wet clutch setup, which is the preferred way to go. It can handle more torque, it can handle more thermal load, and it will be generally more durable than a dry clutch setup. If you're remembering the power shift dual clutch automatics that Ford put in their Fiesta and Focus for a bunch of years that really were kind of a disaster, this is not going to be that same setup. The clutches are continuously bathed in transmission fluid, and that keeps them cooler and helps keep them running longer. Now you'll notice I said front-wheel drive performance Kia, and that is because you cannot get the K5 GT in all-wheel drive. We'll see how that is when we're behind the wheel in a minute. However, Kia does offer all-wheel drive on the K5, but not on the GT trim, only on cars that come with the 1.6 liter. And that's all fine and good. You can get all-wheel drive on the LXS, which is more of an entry-level model, or the GT line, which visually is similar to this one, but will not have the 2.5 liter with the extra power and torque. Now, as far as what else you get beyond the engine and transmission here, you get unique sport suspension. Kia doesn't go into details about what that is. It's not adaptive damping or anything like that, but we are suspecting that the damper rates are different, as well as perhaps the spring rates. So you do have a sport suspension on this car. You also get larger brakes, both front and rear. They're bigger rotors by 1.6 inches on both axles. It's about a 13.6 inch rotor up front and 12 point something out back. So plenty of brake to stop the car. And then with your wheels and tires, you get a 19-inch wheel, which you cannot get on any other K5, and a set of Pirelli P Zero tires. Now looking out back, the final piece of the K5 GT is a unique quad tip exhaust, so you can hear that 2.5 liter a little bit louder than you might with the standard K5 exhaust. Again, it's not an adaptive or active exhaust setup, much like the dampers are not active or adaptive dampers, but it all is a little different from the regular K5s. Moving to the inside, The biggest news is that you get paddle shifters on the steering wheel. The steering wheel is a little bit different. It's a little more of a flat bottom. It's got a GT logo at the bottom, but the big news is you get paddle shifters, so you don't have to control that DCT if you would like to by just the shifter. You also have paddles on the steering wheel for it. The seats are also going to be a little bit different. I don't believe they're a different design, but they are trimmed differently. You've got GT logos in the seat backs and some red piping and red stitching to kind of round things out and give you that little sporty vibe. Those are the differences with the K5 GT compared to other models in the K5 lineup. An MSRP of this sapphire blue 2021 K5 GT with a good amount of options checked on it is about $35,000. So seems like a lot of car for 35 grand. Let's get it on the road and see how it is to actually drive. All right, so driving the 2021 Kia K5 GT. I mentioned I really liked the K5 EX, although granted last year when I had it, I took it on a road trip and my entire driving experience was truly straight, flat stretches of interstate for very long periods of time. I got to learn all about the highway driving assist technology, and I found the car to be very comfortable, very good as a highway partner, but I didn't get to experience really how it handled, and I did find that 1.6 to be a little slow for my own personal preference, although it was very good on gas mileage. It got, I think, 37 miles per gallon in our driving, and we did about 900 miles with it. So, given I thought that the K5 EX was good but a little slow, the K5 GT ought to be everything I liked about the K5 EX, but amped up a little bit from a performance standpoint, and thankfully it is. The extra power and torque is really noticeable, and my complaints about the characteristics of the 1.6, I thought it was a little gruff, a little subject to some extra vibration I didn't find really great. All of that's different with the 2.5. It's a different engine, and I think this is a much better drivetrain for people who care about any sort of performance, or if you just find the 1.6 to be a little slow. There are 3 different drive modes here that control your throttle response, your steering feel a little bit, the shift behavior, and your traction control settings. Like I mentioned, the suspension is not adaptive or adjustable, and neither is the exhaust. So those things will not change based on any of your settings with the drive mode. The traction control in particular is important because, like I mentioned, you're putting 311 pound-feet of torque through the front wheels. This car does have an open differential. It is unlike the sister company Hyundai's Veloster N, where they installed a real limited slip differential. That car is brilliant as far as how it can put power down. In this case, with the K5 GT and the open diff, everything is being handled by the traction control, and it works to a point, but it's also could be better. When you leave it in normal or sport mode, it will put the power down well enough, but especially if you're really just going wide open throttle from a stoplight, which I know all of you do all the time, you're not going to win a stoplight drag race because you just can't put the power down. The tires that come on these wheels are Pirelli P Zeros. They are a 500 tread wear all season, so those are not performance tires in the slightest, even though they are a Pirelli tire. And truly, if you're looking to help put power down, the first thing you could do is put a better tire on this car. So that's just one little quibble. The traction control does do an admirable job with what it's given as far as keeping power to the ground. It does cut things out if you punch it while you're going through a corner and you're unloading the inside tire and getting all the weight off of it. It'll make it want to spin, and it's just going to cut power to kind of shut you down a little bit. If you put the drive mode selector in Sport Plus, though, it puts a notice in the cluster that says traction control disabled, and that is truly the case. It will just let you do burnouts for days. And as fun as that can be, it can also be a little irritating and surprising if you're just trying to put power down. But if you're in Sport Plus mode, you're probably not trying to win a drag race in this car. You're probably more having fun on a back road, like I am now. I do have the transmission gear shift selector in drive right now because one of the points of a dual clutch over other transmissions is that they can shift faster than a human. But the way this engine makes power is that all of the power is made towards the top of the tack, somewhere around 5,000 or so. And if you pop this over to manual mode, now you can use the paddles on the steering wheel. and clicking it down a few gears and getting the motor more into the power band in the middle of the torque band, which starts around 1500 and goes up to about 5000 with that 311 pound-feet, really helps make this car feel much more responsive when you put your foot down and ask for the turbo to do something. And the other nice thing with this DCT compared to some other DCTs I've driven is that it's actually well behaved around town. I've driven this car around Washington, D.C. for the past few days, and I've had some complaints with other manufacturers and their DCTs, particularly those that are on more entry-level cars that are performance-ish oriented, but not outright sports cars. And I really think that Kia has done a nice job with the tuning on this one. It does not feel juddery and shaky at low speeds when you're trying for a lot of throttle modulation and careful driving. There's a little extra vibration at like parking lot speeds if you're trying to be very careful, where with a torque converter automatic, you would just feel very, very smooth, but that's just a fundamental difference in how the transmissions are built. All right, let's hit it. I don't know if you could hear it there, but that was a pretty good one-wheel peel. I'm gonna use the paddles because it's just a little more fun that way. I think this car is plenty quick. As far as how it handles, it is front-wheel drive. Personally, I've noticed the nose getting a little floaty on tighter curves than what I'm going through now. If you've got a tighter off-ramp or on-ramp, you may notice it there. We've got a tighter one coming up here, and obviously if you're careful with your power application, it's fine. We're gonna slow down and throw it in there. And it can put power down there in enough cases, but if you're unloading one of the tires a substantial amount, it gets really tough. With traction control off there, it did push a little bit. It plowed through that turn. That was in third, and it really has a hard time putting some of that power down. But coming up here, it will mostly put it down. It feels pretty good. And the nice thing too is the brakes. These are upsized brakes, like I mentioned. They do feel confident once you get into them. The initial bite feels good, and then when you are hitting the brakes harder, they do feel pretty nice. This is super fun because I don't know the road. And it just washed out. Not bad, totally controllable. This is the problem with front wheel drive and an open diff and a lot of power and torque. But most people are not going to drive like this. Most people won't notice it. So I think by and large it's all right. But it's certainly something. Now, as far as the verdict on if this K5 GT satisfied all my complaints about the K5EX, namely the lack of power, absolutely. I think this is perhaps on the verge of an excessive power, but it's totally fine in normal scenarios. You have to be careful with your right foot if it's very wet outside. Even the traction control with these tires is just not gonna have the best time. But this will still do pretty good on fuel economy. It will not be as good as the K5 non-GT models with that 1.6 liter, but I really do think the power complaints and torque complaints are completely solved with the GT. And if you are someone who is in the market for a car like this but looking for more power than less, and fuel economy is less of a concern, this is going to be pretty good. If you're looking for the ultimate handling car, it will probably not be this. It'll probably be the Stinger, also available in Kia's lineup, and that will offer all-wheel drive or be that rear-wheel drive as your main focus. You really have to be careful with that throttle because it just wants to push if you get on it leaving a corner like that. All right, and that's it for this review of the 2021 Kia K5 GT. Thank you so much for coming along with us. As always, if you like what we're up to, please take a second, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn on that notification bell, like this video, and if you're looking for ways to follow us outside of YouTube, we can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Out Motorsports. And if you're looking to connect with other LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors and a bunch of our allied friends, please head over to outmotorsports.com. We do have a full membership program over there. Until next time, please stay safe, be well, and we'll see you again soon.